Hello, my students and viewers at home. My name is Okolo Evelyn from Biology Department of St. Charles College, Onitsha. Our topic today is on agents of pollination. But before we go into the lesson, let's look at the specific objectives. By the end of the lesson, students will be able to: number 1, list 3 agents of pollination. 2, write 9 characteristics of wind-pollinated flower. Number 3, describe 3 characteristics of water-pollinated flower. 4, differentiate between insect and wind-pollinated flower. Number 5, mention examples of vertebrate animals that can pollinate flower. Now the lesson. In our last lesson, we discussed pollination in plants, and we said that pollination is the transfer of pollen grains from the anther to the stigma. And pollen grains are immortal, thereby can be carried by external agents. And today we are going to look at that external agent. Pollinating agents are called pollinators. Pollinators can be abiotic, that is, non-living, or biotic, that is, living. Abiotic pollinators are wind and water. Water is usually used only for few aquatic plants, like sea plants and grasses. If you look at the structure here, you see the water bodies comprises of sea plants and the grasses. Biotic pollinators. Biotic pollinators refer to various vertebrate animal species, such as birds, small mammals like bats, rodents, etc. And another biotic pollinator is insects. Insects are the most common of them. If you look at the structures here, you see the examples. The structure number 1 is the bird. You can see it there on top of the flower. Structure number 2 is the bat on top of the flower. Then another one is rat, one of the examples of rodents. And the last one is insects like bee. Let's discuss wind pollination or anemophily. Wind-pollinated plant is also called anemophilous plants. Why each flower is called anemophilous flower? Wind pollination is the process of the transfer of pollen from one individual plant to another by air currents. Wind-pollinated plants include grasses, cereal crops like rice, wheat, maize, barley, oats, etc. And another one is palm. Now, let's see the characteristics or features of wind-pollinated flower. Number 1 is flowers are small, inconspicuous. Example, guinea grass. Structure number 1 here is the guinea grass. Number 2, the flower do not produce scent. Number 3, the flower has no nectar. Structure number 2 is the nectar. Then, number 4 characteristics, stigmas are usually large and feathery, exposing large surface area to the wind. Structure number 3 is the feathery stigma. Number 5, filaments are elongated to expose protecting anther to the wind. Number 6, filaments can shake in the slightest wind to release pollen grains to the wind. If you see the structure here, you see the pollen grains released to the wind. Number 7 characteristics, anther shed large quantities of pollens to increase chances of pollination by wind. Number 8, they do not possess standard petals. Do you still remember what standard petal is? Standard petal is that special type of petals that is brightly colored, attract and guide insects. Then number 9, pollen grains are smooth and light. Number 10, anthers are easily shaken off. Water pollination or hydrophily. Water pollination or hydrophily is a fairly uncommon form of water pollination whereby pollen is distributed by the flow of waters, particularly in rivers and streams. Each flower is called hydrophilous flower, while the plant is called hydrophilous plant. If you look at the structure here, you see the water bodies. I see the pollen grains spread on top of the water. Hydrophily is divided into two. Number one, epihydrophily. Number two, hypodrophily. Epihydrophily is the process of pollination in which the pollen grains are transferred from the surface of water. It can be seen in plants that are grown above the surface of water. Example, Vallisneria plants. In Vallisneria, male flowers, after getting detached from the plants, float over the surface of water, as you can see in the structure below. The female flowers in Vallisneria do not detach. If you look at the structure, you will see it. They are raised on the long stalk over the surface of water. When pollen grains come in contact with the stigma, pollination is effected. Hypodrophily is a process of pollination that takes place below the water surface. It can be seen in submerged plants. Submerged plants are the plants that are overflowed with water. Plants showing hypodrophily produce needle-like pollen grains. These pollen grains lack enzyme. What is enzyme? Enzyme is the outermost part of the pollen grains and possess the same specific gravity as that of water. Example, Ceratophilum. In Ceratophilum, the male flowers break and the pollen grains then sink in the water and come in contact with the long and sticky stigma, and pollination occur under water. If you look at the structure here, you see the Ceratophilum plant. This is Ceratophilum plant. And the ones beside it are the pollen grains. You can see that they have detached from the parent plants and they are sinking inside the water where the pollination will take place. Characteristics of water pollinated flowers. Number one, they produce a large number of pollens because most of them get lost by the flow of water. Number two, pollen grains must be smooth and able to float for a long time. Number three, the plant must have a flexible inflorescence to bring the flowers to the water surface at maturity. The structure here is the example of inflorescent flower. Inflorescent flowers are the group of flowers that are arranged along the floral axis. And any flower that is not part of the inflorescence is called solitary flower. Pollination by vertebrate animals or zoophily. Zoophily is a form of pollination whereby pollen is transferred by vertebrates, particularly by birds, bats, rodents, and some other animals. Let's discuss bat pollination or cratophily. Many fruits are dependent upon bats for pollination. Such fruits include mangoes, bananas, and guavas. Plants often pollinated by bats are called cratophilous plants, and they have the following characteristics. One, they have white and pale natural flowers that are large and bell-shaped. Natural flowers are the flowers that are most active during the night. Number two, their flowers have large amounts of nectar and emit a smell that attracts bats, such as strong fruity or musky odor. If you look at the three structures here, you can see the bats. Structure number one, bat and mango. Structure number two, bat and banana. And structure number three, bat and guava. Bell pollination or Ornithophily. The term ornithophily is used to describe pollination, specifically by birds. Example, hummingbird. Structure number 1 is the hummingbird. Another example is sunbird. Structure number 2 is sunbird. Characteristics of birds pollinated plants. Plants pollinated by birds have the following characteristics. Number 1, brightly colored diurnal flowers. Diurnal flowers are the flowers that are most active during the day. They are red in color, yellow or orange. They do not produce scent because birds have a poor sense of smell. Number 2, they have suitable study places for perching. Number 3, flowers are elongated or tube-shaped. Number 4, plants have anther placed in the flower so that pollen rubs against the bird's head or beak as the bird reaches in for nectar. Let's discuss the insect pollination. Insect pollination or entomophily is a form of pollination whereby pollen of plants, especially flowering plants, is distributed by insects. Examples of insects that can pollinate flowers include bees. Structure number 1 is the bee on top of the flower. Another example is butterfly. You can see butterfly in the structure number 2 on top of the flower. Then another one is moths. You can see moths here on top of the flower. And we have some other insects. Let's look at the examples of insect pollinated flowers. We have many examples here. Number 1, hibiscus flower. Another one is pride of Barbados. Then we have rose flower. We have canna lily. Another example is flame of forest. And we also have bougainvillea. And the last one here is crotalaria. We have some other examples of insect pollinated flowers. Characteristics of insect pollinated flower. Number 1, the flowers are large, brightly colored corolla, and conspicuous. Example, crotalaria. Number 2, the flowers possess scent. Example, rose flower. The scent usually attracts insects. Number 3, the flowers secrete nectar. Example, hibiscus and canna lily. Number 4, pollen grains have a roughy or spiky surfaces for sticking to an insect. Then number 5, they have sticky stigma so that pollen grains can adhere strongly on them. Number 6, the flowers have standard petals. Example, flame of forest. Number 7, some flowers have their bracts colored. Example, bougainvillea. Number 8, the flowers are sometimes borne among the leaves. And number 9, some flowers have colored calyx. Example, pride of Barbados. Now, let's see the differences between an insect pollinated flower and a wind pollinated flower. Number 1, on the side of insect pollinated flower, the flowers are large. When they are small, they occur in clusters or in groups to form an inflorescence. On the wind pollinated flower, the flowers are small in size. Number 2, under the insect, it has nectar gland. Then under the wind pollinated flower, nectary gland is absent. Number 3, in insect pollinated flower, the anthers contain few grains. The wind pollinated flower, their anthers contain large pollen grains to allow for wastage. Number 4, on the side of insect pollinated flower, the stamen produce rough, sticky, heavy pollen grains for easy adherence to the stigma. On the side of wind pollinated flower, the stamen produce smooth, light and powdery pollen grains for easy transportation by wind. Number 5, which is the last one. On the side of insect-pollinated flower, it possesses flat or low stigma with sticky surfaces for adherence of the pollen grains. On the side of wind-pollinated flower, the stigma is large and feathery and has outside the flower to provide large surface area for easy adherence to pollen grains. Now the summary. The process of pollination requires agents or pollinators that carry or move the pollen grains from the anther to the receptive part of the female reproductive organ. And the pollinators include wind, water, birds, mammals such as bats, rodents, etc. Then we have insects such as butterfly, moths, bees, and some other insects. Now, my students, we have come to the end of this lesson. Let me use the following questions to evaluate you. Number 1, list 3 agents of pollination. 2, write 9 characteristics of wind-pollinated flower. 3, describe 3 characteristics of water-pollinated flower. Number 4, differentiate between insect and wind-pollinated flower. Number 5, mention examples of vertebrate animals that can pollinate flower. I want you to answer the questions and send it to my WhatsApp number 08037388099. Thanks for listening.